Welcome to our weekly show where we talk about and review a hit film. Expect some interesting takes, unexpected twists, and a whole new way to see the movies you love. If you enjoy the ride, share the show, leave us a rating, and follow for more mind-blowing movie breakdowns.
All right.
Today on the Cast Me If You Can podcast, our cinematic journey is going to be a little bit different.
Okay.
You've sent in requests to explore Pixar's upcoming movie, Elio. Now, usually we break down movies that have already hit the big screen, but Elio is still on the way, set to premiere on June 20th, 2025. Think of this as your exclusive pre-flight briefing. We'll explore everything we know about the film, what's generating all the buzz, and use all the available information to give you a sneak peek at what's to come.
So what do we know about Elio? Well, the story revolves around Elio Solis. He's an imaginative 11-year-old kid who feels like he doesn't fit in. Then, suddenly he's taken by aliens, whisked away to this place called the Communiverse, which is like an intergalactic United Nations. But here's the twist. These aliens think Elio is Earth's ambassador. It's a cosmic case of mistaken identity.
It's an interesting premise, right? A regular kid just trying to figure out life, thrust onto this galactic stage. What we know is that the whole story really does seem to center around Elio navigating this accidental adventure. It's not like he's just visiting space. He's supposed to speak for an entire planet. So we can probably expect to see him trying to figure out this strange new world, interacting with all kinds of aliens. Maybe he'll even get himself into some diplomatic hot water, all while he's trying to figure out who he is. It's like a coming-of-age story, but on a cosmic scale.
Yeah, it's a fish out of water story, but instead of being out of water, he's out of Earth, right? He's on this grand stage, feeling small and insignificant. It's something a lot of people can probably relate to, that feeling of not belonging. And I think that's where the movie could really connect with audiences. It's not just about spaceships and aliens. It's about finding your place in the universe, even if you feel like you don't belong.
And I think Pixar is really good at taking these big ideas and making them feel personal.
Oh, yeah.
They can make us care about robots, toys, even emotions. So you can bet they're going to do the same with Elio and his alien encounters. Plus, Pixar is known for its stunning visuals, so we can expect some pretty incredible alien landscapes, creatures, all that good stuff. It'll be interesting to see how they blend that sense of wonder with Elio's very human, very relatable story.
Right. And it's that contrast, right? The contrast between the extraordinary situation, like being in space and dealing with aliens, and then the very ordinary struggles of an 11-year-old kid. That's where the emotional core of the film is going to lie. That's how Pixar gets us every time. They ground these fantastical stories in real, relatable emotions.
Absolutely. And speaking of emotions, Elio's feeling like an outsider back on Earth really sets the stage for what he goes through in the Communiverse. Like, imagine being an outsider on your own planet, and then suddenly you're an outsider in an entire galaxy. I think we'll see Elio having to embrace his uniqueness, find strength when he doesn't expect it, and maybe even deal with some imposter syndrome as he tries to live up to this role that was thrust upon him. It's a classic story of self-discovery, but against this awesome intergalactic backdrop.
Yeah, and it makes you think, how much of our identity is based on how we see ourselves fitting in? You know, if people perceive us a certain way, do we start to become that person? Or do we push back and say, no, this is who I am, regardless of what you think? I think Elio's journey is going to explore those questions in a really interesting way.
So let's talk about expectations. What do we think critics will say about Elio? Obviously, it's way too early for any reviews because the movie hasn't come out yet. The Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic pages are just sitting there blank, waiting for June 2025. But we can make some guesses.
Well, Pixar has set a really high bar.
Right.
Right? So there's going to be a lot of anticipation, a lot of pressure on this film to live up to the Pixar name. And that can influence how critics approach the movie. It's like the expectations themselves become part of the story.
For sure. But Pixar does have a pretty great track record, and Adrian Molina, who co-directed Coco, is directing this one. So there's reason to be optimistic. And Molina's involvement is interesting. You know, he brought his Mexican heritage to Coco, which added a really beautiful layer to that film. So it'll be interesting to see what he brings to Elio. I mean, Pixar's had some mixed responses to their recent movies, so a home run isn't a guarantee.
Yeah.
But there's definitely potential.
Right. And it's not always predictable how animated films will be received, even from studios like Pixar. A lot depends on the story, how well it resonates with audiences, and even what's happening culturally at the time of release.
Now let's talk about the fans. Right now, it's mostly animation buffs and diehard Pixar fans who are really following Elio closely. They're watching the trailers, absorbing every little detail. And from what we've seen, the initial reaction seems positive. People are drawn to the unique concept, Elio's design, the look of the Communiverse. But it hasn't reached that fever pitch yet. That usually happens after the movie comes out and people start talking about it.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to be fascinating to watch. How do these online communities evolve as we get closer to the release? Right now, it's mostly about the visuals, the initial impressions. But once we get more information, more trailers, more details about the plot, that's when the real speculation begins.
Yeah, once those extra details are released, expect those fan theories to start popping up everywhere. If you want to be part of the early discussions, the r/Pixar subreddit is a good place to start. And I bet we'll see some dedicated Elio subreddits popping up closer to the release date, too. Keep an eye on the Disney or Pixar fandom wikis. They usually have pages for upcoming movies. And of course, you've got fan art already starting to appear on Twitter and Instagram.
It's going to be interesting to see how people interpret those alien designs.
Yeah.
The little glimpses we've gotten in the trailer, it looks like there's a lot of word building going on. I'm curious to see what kind of connections fans make, if they draw parallels to real-world cultures or political systems. The potential for those kinds of discussions is huge.
Okay, let's go behind the scenes a little bit.
Okay.
What we know is that Elio actually had a director change during production. Adrian Molina took over from Domichi, who directed Turning Red. These things happen in filmmaking, especially with animated movies. Creative visions change. Sometimes things just don't work out. And then there was a pretty significant change to the release date. It was originally supposed to come out in March 2024, but it got pushed back to June 2025.
Yeah, that kind of delay usually means something big is happening behind the scenes. It could be production issues, maybe the story needed some reworking, or maybe Disney just wants to make sure they've got a surefire hit on their hands. And from a viewer's perspective, those changes, they can add to the intrigue.
We also know a few of the voice actors. Jonas Kiebreb, who's a newcomer, is voicing Elio. America Ferrera, who you probably know from Ugly Betty and Barbie, is voicing Elio's mom, Olga Solis. She works on a top-secret military project. We've also got Jamila Jamil from The Good Place voicing Ambassador Cuesta, and Brad Garrett, who is in Everybody Loves Raymond and voiced Bloat in Finding Nemo, is voicing Ambassador Grigon.
So you've got this mix of new talent and established names, which is interesting. Having a newcomer voice Elio might bring a certain authenticity to the character. And then you've got actors like America Ferrera, Jamila Jamil, Brad Garrett, who all have such distinct voices and personalities. It seems like they're really going for a blend of humor and heart, which, let's be honest, is what Pixar does best.
Yeah, and the core idea of this kid, a regular kid, being mistaken for a global leader, it's just right for both comedy and drama. It's that classic imposter story, but on a huge scale. I also think it's worth pointing out that Pixar has explored space before, think Wall-E and Lightyear, but Elio seems to be taking a different approach. It's focusing on first contact, on the complexities of an intergalactic community. It's a fresh take on the whole kid meets aliens genre.
Definitely. And most alien encounter stories, they focus on governments, on scientists, on adults. But Elio puts a kid at the center. It's a more innocent perspective, a more imaginative perspective. It could make for a really interesting take on first contact and on how we perceive ourselves in relation to the universe.
It's hard to say what kind of impact Elio will have. Will it be a classic like some of Pixar's best? Will it change how we see the kid meets alien genre? Will it become part of pop culture with iconic lines and characters that everyone remembers? We'll have to wait and see. But it definitely has the potential.
And that's the exciting part, right? We don't know yet how it will resonate, how people will connect with it. And for you, the viewer, it's about how long it stays with you after you've seen it. Does it make you think? Does it make you feel? Those are the things that make a movie truly memorable.
The success of Elio could do wonders for Jonas Kiebrab's voice acting career, and for Adrian Molina, it could really solidify his position as a top director at Pixar. But it all comes down to how the movie connects with audiences. Will it generate those memorable quotes? Will we see people cosplaying as the characters? Will it introduce new terms into our vocabulary? It's all up in the air.
Right. And think about how many Pixar films have become part of our culture. How many characters we instantly recognize, how many lines we quote. It's all about that connection with the audience. If Elio can capture our imaginations, who knows what kind of impact it will have.
Now, before we wrap up, here are a few things to check out if you want to stay up to date on all things Elio. The official movie page on Pixar's website is a good place to start. Then there's the IMDb page where you can find information about the cast and crew. Keep an eye on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic after the release to see what the critics are saying. The Disney Fandom Wiki is also worth checking out. I'm sure they'll have a page dedicated to Elio closer to the release date. And of course, there's the Pixar subreddit where you can join in on the fan discussions.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you want to dive even deeper, there are already some great YouTube videos out there breaking down the trailers. You can find channels that do really in-depth analyses, pointing out little details you might have missed, and offering early theories. It's a great way to get even more excited for the movie.
What's really cool about these pre-release resources is that they let you engage with the movie before you've even seen it. You can start thinking about the themes, the characters, the world. It adds another dimension to the whole viewing experience.
So there you have it. Our cinematic journey into the world of Elio. The movie might still be on its launch pad, but based on what we know, it has all the makings of another Pixar classic. We've talked about the story, the visuals, the potential themes, the pre-release buzz, the behind-the-scenes stuff, and even speculated a bit about the future. But here's something for you to think about. What if you were suddenly mistaken for someone you're not? What if you were thrown into a completely unfamiliar situation? How would you handle it? What strengths would you discover in yourself? Keep those questions in mind as we get closer to June 20th, 2025. It might give you a new perspective on Elio's journey.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it?
Thanks for joining us for this special pre-release breakdown of Elio on the Cast Me If You Can podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with your friends, leave us a rating, and follow us for more deep dives into the movies we love. Until next time, keep looking up.